Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show that covers all things marketing. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast gives you the latest marketing news, from what major businesses have planned for the coming year to the newest trends in advertising, from podcasts, digital and streaming, to the old standbys of radio, television, and billboards. Whether you're a marketing agent or a business trying to expand your brand, you've come to the right place. The GSMC Marketing News Podcast starts now.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jakewish, and I am so excited to have you here today. If you aren't already, please subscribe to this podcast and write a review down below. I love hearing from you guys. I love hearing thoughts on what you think of the podcast, and I love hearing your ideas for what I should talk about in future episodes. So definitely make sure to write your review down below and reach out through social media. We have a YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter page, so definitely go check those out if you're interested on continuing this conversation outside of the podcast. On today's podcast, we are going to be talking about social media influencers and how they can impact your digital marketing strategies. So we're going to dive into some statistics on how they actually help, how they make their money, and if they are actually beneficial to small companies or just large companies. And we're also going to talk about some of the more famous influencers who you may know and some who you may not know but are making a ton of money on social media platforms, so you should definitely check them all out. But to start out today's podcast, let's talk about what is new in the marketing world. So first, YouTube has rolled out their new child content policy. So if you're a YouTube creator and you create tons of content on the platform and some of it is targeted towards children, then this is definitely going to affect you. So starting this year, YouTube will no longer serve personalized ads or support features such as comments, stories, live chat, notification bell, and others on videos designated made for kids. So basically now you're going to have an option that maybe your content is aimed for children or it is aimed for adults. And if you click that it is aimed for children, that it is a child-friendly video, people are no longer going to be able to monetize their videos, have people comment on their videos, or be able to share that content. So definitely interesting and definitely something that affects not only influencers who we'll be talking about today, but also if you're a company that creates a product that is for a child, maybe you want to reconsider using YouTube as a social media platform if it's not going to be able to actually generate any sort of engagement with your audience or any actual monetization of your product. And above all that else, YouTube also announced that anyone who watches the child-friendly videos, they're going to collect their personal data, whether they're children or not. YouTube, the Google-owned company, has said that. So not only that, if you're like trying to sneak around the system and you're like, all right, this is a kid-friendly video, but I'm going to hit that it's not on the YouTube button, doesn't matter. YouTube is going to change it back to it being a kid-friendly video if it follows certain regulations. They put out in a blog post the other day, we also use machine learning to help us identify this content, and creators can update a designation made by our systems if they believe it is incorrect. We will only override a creator's designation if abuse or error is detected. So super interesting that they are now also clearly not trusting the creators themselves to designate the videos, because as I just said, it's not going to be useful for anyone who makes content for children anymore, because one, children and their parents aren't going to want them watching it anymore if the data is getting collected, and two, if you can't get ads on your videos anymore and you can't have people comment on your videos anymore, they're really limiting the platform that used to be unlimited. That's why people loved YouTube. That's why I loved YouTube. That's why people started creating videos on there in the first place, was for freedom of speech. And so now they're kind of taking that, they're not taking that away, but they're taking something away and they're restricting something. And it's definitely important as marketers and as people and as a society that we pay attention to this and we talk about this. So I really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this. Please reach out through social media. Please write in the review down below, because I want to know what you think of what YouTube is doing and why they are doing it. The next news story I want to talk about is that Meghan Markle, the Duchess herself, has signed a voiceover deal with Disney. So not a lot of details have been released about the project yet, but it is very interesting because we all know and we all followed the story of Meghan Markle leaving her job on the TV show Suits to pursue her life as a Duchess with Prince Harry. So very interesting to see her coming back into the entertainment world, especially with everything that's been going on with the royal family. So very interesting to see that, oh no, she's going to be working as an actress again. But from a different standpoint, it is even more surprising. And it's not even surprising at this point. I have said it in many, many podcasts. Disney can do whatever they want. Honestly, it was like they were sitting around brainstorming and they were like, we kind of want a Meghan Markle type to play this part. How about we get Meghan Markle herself, get her down here, get her to do the voiceover, and those goals get accomplished. And it's sort of amazing that they're able to do that and sort of scary that they're able to do that. But it's why I definitely always recommend to follow Disney's marketing and to take notes from Disney's marketing, because they truly do just know how to like accomplish these goals and take this kind of stuff down. So definitely always pay attention to what they're doing and how they're doing it, because it can become useful information for you. So what do you think of Meghan Markle signing a voiceover deal with Disney? And more importantly, what do you think of Disney and how they've been marketing this news? I definitely haven't seen a lot about it, other than today on January 12th, where I suddenly saw one headline about it or two headlines about it. And what I'm curious about is, are they keeping it a little low-key for now until the project is actually released, and then we're going to see it everywhere. We're going to see it marketed. Because remember, everything Disney does, they do it by thinking 10 steps ahead, right? Nothing is spur of the moment. Everything is planned out, which is how we should always look at our marketing and how we should always consider the moves and the strategies that we make. So very interesting, and something we'll definitely have to keep an eye on, and I'll definitely talk more as the story progresses. All right, guys, this next story is really funny, and I just had to share it because it is something that every time I go into a company to consult or talk about their marketing, it is something I warn them about, and it's something that I want to make sure that they never do, because you're just going to look so silly if you do it. Don't like your own photos and don't comment on your own photos. Now, obviously, a lot of people know what a Finster is, which is a fake Instagram account, and a lot of companies create them so that they can like their own photos and they can comment on their own and kind of start a conversation going. I've definitely done Facebook Lives before where I've had multiple Facebook accounts open and are like engaging with the Facebook Live or asking questions to make other people ask questions. So it's all well and good to do that, but always make sure that if you're doing that, you separate the two accounts completely, because it can be so dangerous, as one Bachelor contestant found out as she commented on her own photo and she did not switch to her Instagram account. She wrote, "Beautiful date, Maddie. You are so genuine and real." And it has her name on it, and oh my goodness, it is so, I'm embarrassed for her. But if anything, I just need you guys to take the mental note of make sure to never do what Madison Perwett from The Bachelor did. And always make sure that if you have a fake Instagram account, log on and log off before you comment on any photo. Get rid of them completely. Do not be even browsing on your own photos on your fake Instagram account or on your real one. Make sure, be organized and be safe. I'm not saying it's a bad idea. I'm not saying it's a good idea. I'm saying it can be a dangerous little tool and a dangerous little game to play. In this case, I mean, it's nothing harmless. This girl is a contestant on The Bachelor. It just kind of makes her look less genuine than she actually is. So definitely funny, and definitely something a little more lighthearted in the marketing world that I wanted to let you guys know about because, marketing is hard. It can be hard work. It can be a lot of fun, but it can be hard work. So I definitely always want to try to shine a little bit of light into your guys' life and remind you that mistakes happen, but they can be fun and you can learn from them. I'm definitely going to start following this Madison girl now just to see if she does it again or if she responds to what she did. So, hey, you know what? Maybe this was a whole PR stunt because I'm saying I'm going to go follow her now. So she's going to get more followers. Yeah, we'll have to see what happens with that for sure. Okay, everyone, we're going to go ahead and take a short break from the podcast, but when we come back, we are going to take a look at Instagram influencers and social media influencers. We're going to talk about who they are, what they are, and how they can help your company, or if they're actually not right for your company. I'm going to answer all of those questions and more when we return to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast covers everything tech. The hottest mobile phones, tablets, games. We review it, rate it, test it. Whether you're Microsoft or Apple, Android or iPhone, we'll give it to you again. Black and white. The Golden State Media Concepts Technology Podcast.
Welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and thank you for joining me today. Before the break, we were talking about what is new in the marketing world. We talked a lot about what is happening on YouTube right now and just how they are starting to restrict the platform more and more, and a lot of rules and regulations are going up about it, and how it might be a good thing and how it might be a bad thing. I still really want to hear your guys' thoughts on this, so please write in the review down below and please reach out through social media because I find it fascinating and I want to know what your guys' take is on the situation. We talked about Meghan Markle signing a voiceover deal with Disney and how Disney hasn't really been talking about it much yet, but we're excited to see where the marketing will take us there. And we talked about a very funny incident where a Bachelor contestant wrote on her own Instagram account commenting on how beautiful and genuine she was when she was really trying to use her Finsta, which is her fake Instagram account. So very funny and a very lighthearted way to sort of end our news segment. Now that we are back from our break, I want to talk about what is the main point of today's episode, which is influencer marketing. For those of you that don't know, influencer marketing is when you take a social media influencer, whether it be YouTube, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, whatever it may be. Maybe they write a blog and you get them to advertise your product through their content. So you're not putting an ad at the start of their video. You're not putting an ad on their Instagram account. Instead, you're saying, take my product, create content with it that matches your own content, and make your followers or persuade your followers to buy my product. So it's definitely a bit of a wraparound way of using a traditional digital ad, because the interesting thing is 40% of consumers use ad blocking technology. So right now, if you do have YouTube ads up, if you have ads on websites, almost 50% of people are not seeing your content, whereas, hundreds of millions follow Kim Kardashian online, and if she talks about a lotion, they're all getting that. They're not even seeing that it's an ad. She can hashtag ad, but they're not even going to, no ad blocker is going to block that. They're going to like it. They're going to engage with it. So what I want to talk about today is how you're able to use social media influencers to market your content for you. So some statistics to really consider is that 70% of teens trust influencers more than traditional celebrities. So it's important to remember when we're talking about influencers and people on social media, yes, celebrities can intertwine with that, but it's more, these people aren't actors, these people aren't singers, they're not performers of any kind in a traditional sense. Instead, they are strictly promoting their life and their lifestyle through the social media platform. So, getting a celebrity to endorse your product is a little bit different than getting a social media person to influence your product, because people are a little more untrustworthy of celebrities and their product endorsement, whereas an influencer, especially to a teen, it would seem more like a friend is recommending the product rather than a celebrity who is clearly getting paid to promote something. So 86% of women use social media for purchasing advice. So this is a really interesting statistic that almost caught me by surprise, because I was like, I don't think I do. Like, I definitely don't use social media for purchasing advice. I then went to go on Instagram and saw a really cute pair of brown boots and was like, oh, maybe I should buy some brown boots for winter. And it took me by total surprise how easily it happened, and how easily I didn't notice it happening. And these boots weren't even an ad. It was just some girl I follow who was wearing them. I don't even think she counts as a social media influencer. So it definitely does impact the way I certainly buy things. I know it impacts the way my brother buys things. So it's definitely an interesting statistic, but I don't think it's only women that are doing it. I think it's everyone that are doing it. So it's just something to consider when you're using a social media influencer. Don't just get them to post a photo of your product. Make sure they talk about the product in an educational and informative way, because maybe people aren't going to, click the link in the bio to buy it right away, but they are going to take that information and then maybe go to the store or keep it in the back of their mind or buy it later on that day. So always make sure the content you're using with your social media influencer is accurate and is educational. 49% of consumers depend on influencer recommendations. So this is super interesting because it means that almost 50% of our population who are buying stuff, so of the consumer population, they are all trying to get access to information and education from people they trust. We talked about the difference between a celebrity and a social media influencer, and I think the biggest difference really is trust. People trust these influencers more because they seem honest and they seem genuine. So if you're going to work with a social media influencer, make sure that they are genuine and make sure that everything they talk about with your product is genuine and that they actually do use it. A lot of influencers might take the product and promote the product, but they actually don't use it. And so if someone asks them a question about it, they're unable to answer. So if you're going to use a social media influencer, make sure they understand your product and make sure they actually like your product. It is so important to be genuine online because people can tell when you're not. So now let's really just get in there. I've already talked about it a little bit, but let's talk about how you can work with a social media influencer. So the first thing you need to do is do a little bit of research, and by a little bit, I do mean a lot, on which social media influencers are already talking about products that you're selling. So if you sell skincare, look for beauty bloggers, beauty gurus, people who are really into their vanity or really love talking about their skincare. So try to find people like that. If you're a small business, try to find people like that in your local area, because it's going to be a whole lot easier for them to know who you are, recognize your brand, and want to work with you. The second thing you need to look into is how big your budget is going to be for this. A lot of people, maybe they just accept free products, and that is something you can be prepared for of, hey, if you market one of our lotions, then we'll give you a lifetime supply. That's a bit dramatic, but you see what I'm getting at. Whereas other influencers want to be paid. So definitely pay attention to that and definitely work out some sort of budget of how much you want to pay and for how much content they're creating. The second thing you want to do, we've already talked about being genuine a little bit, but we want to make sure all of the content they're creating is in line with your brand and your ideas for your brand. So it might not be a bad idea to ask them to send a photo or a snapshot of what they're going to post, because maybe you want to proof it. Maybe you want to write the post for them. That might be a little off, and I don't recommend it, but maybe you do, and that's okay. You are allowed to ask questions, and you are allowed to demand certain things when it comes from how they are talking about your product if you are paying them. So the next thing you want to do, and I talked about it a little bit, but it is so important, so I'll say it again, make sure they like your product and make sure you like their content. Don't just work with an influencer because they have a lot of followers or they're really cheap. Make sure your brand and their brand actually work well together, because this is a partnership that is going to grow and it is going to develop over time. So you're really going to want to make sure you put a lot of effort into it and you put a lot of time into making that relationship work. Okay, everyone, we are going to go ahead and take our last short break from the podcast, but when we come back, I am going to talk about some Instagram followers or just social media followers. But when we come back, we are going to talk about some social media influencers you should be following, or at least be paying attention to how they create their content, so that maybe you can recommend that your social media influencer does a similar thing or doesn't do that at all. So we're going to talk about that, and I am going to request that you check them out as we're talking about it. That way you get a clear image in your mind. If you don't want to do it while listening to the podcast right now, maybe you're driving, maybe you're about to go to sleep, make sure you save this part of the podcast and listen to it later, because it is really important to have a visual idea of who these people are and what content they're creating, because it might not work for you. So stay tuned, because you are listening to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and I'll be right back.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be, visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
And welcome back to the GSMC Marketing Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I'm your host, Mackenzie Jaquish, and thank you for joining me today. Before the podcast, we were talking about social media influencers. We were talking about some statistics on why you should work with them. We talked about how 49% of consumers depend on an influencer's recommendation, and that is such a strong statistic, but it is such an important statistic for you to know as marketers, so that you're able to use that information for your own marketing. So we talked about how you can work with them as well, of doing the research to make sure that you like their content and that they like your product, and also making sure you're working with the right influencer. If you're selling beauty products, you don't want to work with somebody who is trying to sell clothes, right? So definitely make sure that interest and values are aligned together when working with an influencer, because the reason people like influencers so much is because they're human, and we can see that they're human. So make sure when you're hiring one of them, you are hiring the human, not how many followers they have. You are following them for genuine and for real reasons. Speaking of hiring them, I'm going to talk about some influencers that are making serious amounts of money promoting their products online for other companies or their own companies, but they're using their platform to talk about their products. And we're going to talk about how much they make, how often they have to post, and how many followers they have. And obviously, I'm not going to talk about every single person who's ever made money on social media, but if I miss any that you find are super important, please comment them in the review down below or reach out through social media, because I would love to hear if I missed any. So the first one, this will come as no shock to anyone, but it is Kylie Jenner. I know no one wants to hear about the 23-year-old billionaire, but guess what? She's a 23-year-old billionaire because she used social media. So when we talk about social media influencers, it would be impossible for us to leave her out. It would be insane for us to leave her out. She makes $400,000 per sponsored post. What? Are you serious? If I made that much money from just 100 posts, student loans would be gone. I'd be living on a boat. I'd be gone. You'd never see me again. That is a crazy amount of money. And I'm not saying that every post she does is sponsored, so don't freak out. She's not getting $400,000 every hour on the hour. But she does do quite a few sponsored posts. And on top of that, she's making money from Kylie Cosmetics. The reality show probably pays her quite a bit. So, yeah, Kylie Jenner, if you're looking for a new best friend after the whole Jordan Woods thing, I'm available. Just gotta share some of that money with me, all right? Following closely behind her little sister is Kim Kardashian West. She has 1.9 million followers and makes about $500,000 to share products with her followers. So if you want Kim Kardashian to talk about your skincare, to talk about your smoothies, to talk about your leggings, it's going to cost you $500,000. So it's really interesting to go on her Instagram though and look at the ones that are actually a product shot or an ad, because she does make it really obvious, which maybe isn't something you want, or maybe it is something you want. So go check those out and maybe try to see if you can figure out which ones are the product posts, because it is a little obvious. The next one is Tyler Oakley. So at the beginning of today's episode, we talked about YouTube, and it's really interesting that we talked about YouTube, and now I'm talking about Tyler Oakley and later Lily Singh, because Tyler Oakley made his start on YouTube, and it's definitely the reason that he makes $6 million a year on being a social media influencer. Now, obviously, he's not just on YouTube anymore. You know, he wrote a book. He's on Instagram. He's doing the Ellen Show. He's got a lot going on. It is not just that YouTube dollars coming in anymore. And also, I don't know if it was ever kids content or it'd be organized as kid content. So we'll just have to wait to see what happens there. But for now, he's making a lot of money being a social media influencer. And what I really love about Tyler Oakley is that when he talks about a product, the product already matches his values. And you can tell that he really takes a lot of time and consideration and does a lot of research to understand the products he is talking about and really truly believes in the products he is talking about. He is not just doing it for the money. He is doing it because he recognizes that he has a voice, and that voice is important and should only be shared if it's of value. The next YouTuber on our list. I gave a little bit of a spoiler earlier, but we are talking about Lily Singh. She brought home $10.5 million from her YouTube channel in 2017. Obviously, she is making so much more money now because she has her very own late night show, Little Late with Lily Singh. But let's talk about the $10 million she brought home in 2017 just from her YouTube channel. I remember watching videos at that time of her talking about Calvin Klein underwear in a video that was sponsored by Calvin Klein, and you would have had no idea it was sponsored by Calvin Klein until the end of the video, because the content was actually engaging. The content fitted into her brand already. If she wasn't sponsored by that video, if that video hadn't been sponsored, it still would have worked for her channel. She still could have done it. And that's sort of the kind of content I love to see these social media influencers use, is that their product that they're advertising is just fitting in with everything else rather than completely taking over. So definitely check her out if you're thinking of working with a YouTuber. Not saying you would get to work with her, but it is definitely the type of content you want to see when working with someone who does long form content rather than just a single post. The last one on our list is actually a celebrity. I know I talked about earlier about how, celebrities don't really get trusted as well as the others. But, I think we all just think this girl is a complete and total sweetheart. Whether or not that is true, I will never have any idea. But Selena Gomez makes $550,000 per her sponsored post. Guys, that's more than Kylie Jenner. That's crazy. Here's the thing. I 100% support this type of marketing. If you can do it on both ends. This is a crazy amount of money some of these people are making, though. So I guess the moral of this episode is jump on that bandwagon. If you haven't already, jump on it, because there's a lot of money to be made, a lot of marketing to go around, and I honestly think it really is the future. It's definitely a big marketing trend going into 2020. So definitely consider it, and make sure you consider it in terms of if it is right for your company and right for your brand. I don't want you doing this if you just want to jump on the bandwagon. I know I said it, but it was a joke. Definitely take time to research what is right for your company and your brand. Okay, everyone, that is it for today's podcast. Thank you so much for joining me. I hope you really enjoyed today's discussion about YouTube's new protocols and also social media marketing and how to use influencers to your benefit. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, or even just a funny thought about today's episode, please write them in the review down below, and make sure you subscribe to this podcast for future episodes. We post every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'm always here, I'm always talking, and I love talking to you about marketing. So I'll see you next time.
You've been listening to the GSMC Marketing News Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcasts on SoundCloud, Stitcher, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to any podcast app, and you'll find all of the shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, from business news to weird news, you'll find it all on the GSMC Podcast Network. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.